Good evening, and thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm New York City Councilman Chaim, and you're listening to Chaim the Radio. I'm here live on the air with my co-host, Dr. Faye Zakheim, and we're filling in tonight for Zeb Brenner here on Talkline Communications Network. You're listening to 620 on the AM dial. As always, we're joined with my co-host once again. Yeah, she's on the line, calling from upstate. Hi, Faye.
Hi, Councilman. I'm just wondering, how do you sound so upbeat when the world is so horribly depressed right now? There is so much going on that is making everybody so sad.
Well,
so
I'm going to reverse it. That's because I know you're on the line.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think we have to take joy in the little things because the big things are very, very, very difficult. And thank you so much for this radio show.
And it is depressing down here. And, I live in the red zone. And, I'm still trying to figure out why it's called a red zone. Does it mean that we live in a dangerous area because we are Jews? Is it because the infection rate is really higher than other areas, which is not so? Or is it called a red zone because, many of the people in this red zone voted for President Trump and from the Republican Party? I guess that's red, right? So they call it a red zone. So I don't know, What do you think, Fagin?
I think that that's really something to think about. And it's that, if people getting sick and people dying of COVID makes us think about a presidential election and not think about how much mental illness there is out there and how much physical illness there is out there, how sad that is. We need to be focusing on what you want to focus on, which is helping people with health and helping people with their mental health. And instead we have to be thinking about red being about a president. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, it is sad.
Right?
And, what's very troubling, and our listeners should know this, I feel I live in a communist city. And the fact is, I have several zip codes in my district, and I represent parts of Midwood, Sheepshead Bay, Manhattan Beach, Brighton Beach, and parts of Coney Island. Now, I have I think 3 or 4 zip codes that's called the red zone. I hate to say this, but I have to tell our listeners that many of the elected officials, we're powerless. We're powerless without the support of our constituents, which means when we put something out on social media, like when I put out something on social media, people respond to me, "Oh, why is it just a tweet? Why can't you do just more than a tweet?" And the fact is, every time I put something on social media, it either follows up with a phone call to the administration, or I already contacted someone in the administration, and then I put out a tweet. So it's not just something that you put out on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. It comes with action, and not always do people see that action. I mean, we're busy literally 24 hours a day. And I have to tell you that you would think, Faggy, that I represent a district that has 3 or 4 zip codes in a red zone. Now, would you think that the governor of the state of New York or the mayor of the city of New York would call me at least once since March, since the beginning of COVID, to say, okay, what can we do? How can we help? How can we work together? How many times do you think they should have called me from beginning of March up until today?
Honestly, every day.
Every day, right? Every day.
Every day that people are dying and going to hospitals. Every single day.
Correct. And let me just tell you that myself and many of my colleagues have not received phone calls from anyone, from the governor, from the mayor. And in matter of fact, I called the mayor on his cell phone a few nights ago. I have to admit, I did not leave a message. And then 2 nights ago, I called again, and I left him a message. And he had a staff member call me up. I think it was almost 12 o'clock in the morning, sent me a text. "What's up?" And I called him back, and I said, "What's up?" I said, "I want to speak to the mayor." He goes, "Okay, what do you want to talk to him about?" "I want to flag it for him." And basically what I said, I'd like to have a conversation because we have an uptick, and all you're doing and all the governor's doing is aggressive enforcement, more the governor than the mayor. The mayor has been actually pretty good when it came to aggressive enforcement over the last few weeks, but the governor has been really overreached his territory, and he really came after the community. Now, when you see aggressive enforcement, and you would think that okay, the governor says we have to do aggressive enforcement because people are not listening. Let me tell you that the messages, the mixed messages that people are receiving, conflicting guidance between the constant bickering between the mayor and the governor, not agreeing on the same issue, always coming out against each other, and they also fail to know how to reach out to communities. Like, if you reach out to a only Spanish-speaking community and you talk in English and you send messages in English, they wouldn't not understand what you're talking about. Different communities have different ways of communicating. It's not all about, if someone runs for office, the mayor and the governor, they put out sound cars. Okay, they put out a sound car. They put out literature, they put out ads in papers, but if you're running for office and you do those three things, you're not winning. The only way you're going to win is when you knock on doors and you make contact with individuals and you really show the person that you're caring, not through a radio ad, not through a newspaper ad. And they have these contact traces that really harass the hell out of people every single day. And they could call the same person like 5 times a day. Take that manpower and make a phone call to communities that you consider in the red zone and be diplomatic. We always say, people have been saying over the last 5-6 months that the NYPD needs to de-escalate. Well, the mayor and the governor needs to de-escalate, and the way to do that is to make phone calls and say, hi, I'm calling on behalf of the Department of Health, and I just want to explain to you the importance of social distancing, washing your hands, wearing a mask. People have questions, and I answer these questions every single day. So you have these people who think that COVID is a hoax because you get mixed messages, and the governor and the mayor cannot come out with a unified message when it comes to certain guidelines, when it comes to giving out certain information. So now I have to take that person who doesn't understand why a mask is important and make a conference call with an infectious disease doctor or someone from DOH to explain to them what the importance is. So one-on-one contact is extremely important, and they failed to make that contact. But now we see all this aggressive enforcement. We see people all over Borough Park, all over Flatbush, all over Midwood. I had a yeshiva that they were closed. Yeshivas were closed. And the ones that I deal with, they were all closed. And they had multiple inspectors knocking on the doors all throughout the day. How many people do you need to go to a school to verify that that school is closed? So anyway, I just let out my frustration, and we have a jam-packed show for you tonight. And we're going
to
start.
Great. And you know what? Your passion and your desire to help people, I wish that they had that, because you're there for everybody. Why can't they just learn from you a little bit? It's not about politics. It's about people's lives. Exactly. It's about people decompensating. People are falling apart, and nobody cares. It's just except you.
Well,
thank you, Chaim. Thank you so much.
So, we've been hearing a lot about double standards throughout the last several months, and even before, actually, probably the last 5 months. So we have a very special guest tonight, and that is Detective Paul DiGiacomo. Detective DiGiacomo is the president of the New York City Detectives Endowment Association, and that is the union that represents the New York City Police Department police detectives. And this morning, Detective DiGiacomo published a fantastic opinion piece in the Daily News discussing the double standard that police officers and New Yorkers are held in the city. And you're going to hear some inside information, even though he wrote an op-ed today in the Daily News, and that took a lot of guts. And Paul DiGiacomo has the guts. I always tell him that he should run for office, but actually, I don't recommend anyone to run for office. And so, Detective DiGiacomo, welcome on the air.
Good evening, Chaim. Thank you again for having me tonight, and thank you for always supporting New York City Police and the detectives.
Thank you, and thank you for your support to our community. And you've been a fixture in the DEA, Detectives Endowment Association, for many years, and you just recently made president. You were voted to be president, not of the United States, but of the DEA.
We had a very difficult time in our history. Yes.
Yes, and you've always been very supportive of the community. And I have to say, and I'm going to tell you again, that when when you talk about, Faye was just talking about passion, about being passionate about something, and you are one of the few guys that I know that have so much passion, and everything you do is like you do it because that's the right thing to do. And that's, I read your op-ed this morning and I was, wow. I said, no one else said anything like that. And your editorial, you discussed in particular the double standard when it comes to COVID enforcement. So tell our listeners, can you speak a little bit about that, and if you feel that the NYPD is being asked to aggressively enforce regulations against the Orthodox community, and talk about your op-ed.
Well, there's no clear direction. It's unfortunate, but the mayor and the governor are acting like two children, and there is no clear direction on the service to the people of the state and the people of the city. And you can't play games and have some rules for some people and other rules for other people. This is a very difficult time in our history, and people are dying at an alarming rate. People are getting sick at an alarming rate, and we have to have a clear, decisive direction. I find that politicians always had differences years ago, but the common goal was to take care of the people of the state and the city, and I don't find that today. I think that some of our elected officials, our mayor and our governor, has lost focus on what their job is. And they're not servicing the people of the city and directing them properly on how to survive during this difficult time in our history.
So what do you think about when you had the people looting, I'm not talking about the peaceful protesters, when you had the people looting in, a few months ago, and everything that was going on, and officers were attacked, detectives were attacked on the street, no one said anything, everyone, when it was an officer involved, right away they came down your throat and they blamed you. You have to stand back. What did you feel during that period?
Well, that was something that could have been stopped very quickly. We've experienced civil unrest before, and I've been part of it over the years. I have 38 years in the New York City Police Department, and I've been involved in quite a few of these civil unrest situations. And if it's handled properly, it could be stopped immediately. And, we have highly trained, probably the best trained police department in the world. We have a disorder control unit, you have the emergency service unit, you have the mounted unit, you have a lot of units that are trained just for situations like this. But they weren't utilized properly because the mayor did not authorize the utilization of these units. And this rioting and civil unrest and looting could have been stopped right at the start of the disorder, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and when you saw, I remember seeing a story about a mayor in California who was all for defunding the NYPD, and until protesters showed up at her house, and she called 911 for help. I mean, do you see similar situations here in New York City?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Defunding the police is just ludicrous. We have to refund the police. We have to do more training. Policing is more difficult now than ever under the circumstances that we're working under. You got to remember one thing. Police, the New York City Police Department was out there in force during the beginning of this coronavirus, serving the people of this city. And the rank of detective lost 6 NYPD detectives to this coronavirus, the invisible bullet, I call it. And, they died in the line of duty responding to different jobs throughout the city, to hospitals, to homicide scenes, to DOAs. And not only did they die, but before they died, they brought this terrible virus home to their families. And their families contracted this disease and this virus and had to, suffer. And that's something that we've never experienced before in our society.
Yeah.
Also, you want to hear something really interesting? I'm upstate right now. So today I was talking to this kid that's becoming a state trooper. He is so excited about becoming a policeman because up here there's respect for the policemen. And in New York, the policemen, they cower. They're kind of afraid to hold their heads up high because they can feel the disrespect that they have from people. And I don't know how that happened. When did we get to a point where policemen are disrespected?
Well, you need the support of your elected officials. If you don't have the support of the elected officials in this city, the people of the city aren't going to support the police. I've never seen a government body in all my years turn their back on law enforcement like I've seen now. The governor has turned their back on the police, the assembly, the Senate, the mayor, most of the city council, except for 4 or 5 people out of 51. That has to tell you something. That's ludicrous. That 5 people out of the whole city council support the police. And we're the people that protect them every day. And these people enjoy the protection of New York City detectives on their security details, a lot of them, and why they don't get attacked and why they're safe every day. And their total disrespect for law and order is disgusting. And, the people of the city are paying, as we see every day, the amount of shootings that are taking place and the people that are getting shot and young children that are getting shot by stray bullets. With all that being said, New York City detectives, throughout this difficult time in our history, are still out there investigating these shootings, investigating these homicides, and bringing some closure to these families that are victims. And we're doing an amazing job. We've lost over 500 detectives in the last couple of months, and we lost a tremendous amount of knowledge, experience, and talent. And how do you replace that? I don't know.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, Paul. So I drive around, I go in different parts of the city, different parts of Brooklyn, not as much as I used to, but when I drive around, like today there was a video of people in Marine Park playing basketball. I think it was in the orange zone. You have no masks, nothing. I was in Canarsie not too long ago, and it was actually right after Labor Day. There were thousands of people out there now wearing masks, not properly social distancing. And the fact is, I live in a red zone, and when people don't test, like if you have, let's say, 1,000 people test, and you have high numbers of COVID, but you don't have enough negative tests, right? Because people are only testing because they're not feeling well. So all of a sudden you turn into a red zone. And other areas you might have higher testing, percentages lower, but there are areas throughout the city that have high numbers as well. So, when the administration tells the NYPD, go into a neighborhood, and in particular the Jewish community, and, again, 2 wrongs don't make a right, and I feel people should wear a mask, but the problem is I don't blame them as much because the communication, the education, the contact, one-on-one contact, the reaching out to communities the way that it needs to be done. Not everyone, reads the newspapers. There's very few newspapers in certain areas. A lot of people in the Orthodox community don't have televisions. So, according to the governor, yes, they got the message. It's all over the news and this and that. But it's not just a message that people want to hear because they don't trust government, especially when a mayor and the governor are constantly fighting. How can you trust 2 people that are fighting against each other on the lives of others? Why would you trust them for? And people need answers to the questions. And when those questions don't get properly answered by doing education one-on-one, enforcement is not the issue. Enforcement is not the issue. And then they call up the NYPD and they force them to go inside these neighborhoods to do this type of enforcement. How does it make you feel as a detective and going into a community that probably one of the only communities that support the NYPD and listening to the governor and the mayor and saying go inside these neighborhoods and do aggressive enforcement? Like today there was a video, the sheriff climbed into a window to actually took a photo with his cell phone of a window to see if there's any kids in the school. It's like a peeping Tom. I mean, there have been harassing, and this is not the way you get a job done.
Well, I agree. I agree on two aspects of what you said. One is which people we've lost confidence in the government. Between the mayor and the governor, we've lost confidence. They're not serving the people the way they should be serving the people of the state and the city. And as far as the mass situation with the police department, that's something that we should not be doing. That's something that the city council people should be doing. People in the community leaders should go out and educate the people, and then make sure that they're wearing the masks. Nothing good is going to come out of the NYPD going up to people and forcing them to wear masks. It's going to turn into a confrontational situation because, in some neighborhoods, in the criminal element in some neighborhoods are emboldened now. And any time they are confronted by the police, it escalates into a situation that it shouldn't escalate to.
Absolutely.
And we should not be doing the enforcement of the masks. That's something that community leaders should be doing, city council people should be doing, and it's not something the police should be involved in right now because it's not a good thing. It's not going to turn into a productive encounter.
Correct. We're going to the call-in number here in the studio is 718-303-9090, 718-303-9090. The phones are already ringing. We're going to take one phone call before we go. Go ahead. Hi, you're on the air. Hi, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm an administrator of a school, and I've been an administrator in the same school for close to 30 years. And it's not a new experience for me to be visited by various departments, whether it's the police department, the OH, FDNY, building department. And by and large, it's been very, very civil, and sometimes it got a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't always like the results, but I never had an experience like I had yesterday. I arrived at work at 9:15. By 9:45, I had two people visit my office. One had a badge saying he's a detective. Another one had a badge saying that he was an inspector, asking, are we open? I said, well, you see we're not open. There are just several skeleton staff here that's working to facilitate the school's ongoing business activities, etc. Seems they came on a 311 call. There was a 5-minute meeting. They left. 11:15, we were visited by two people from the OH casing the building, looking where they could get in, trying to see what was going on. Again, we explained to them, nobody's here, there are no classes, there's maybe 10, 15 people in a 90,000 square foot facility. I thought we were finished with it until 3 o'clock when the sheriff shows up. And I actually had her waiting 15 minutes in the front lobby because I just was losing my patience. When I went out there, I asked her, why would we have this type of basic harassment of sorts? And why would we need 3 different people to visit the same school to send the message that we should be closed when we are closed?
Absolutely.
Really, I've never had an experience.
And that is a waste of personnel and manpower. When we had all the anti-Semitic incidents in 2019, beginning of 2020, we couldn't find anyone out here. All of a sudden now, they're coming in like you said. This is harassment. You send someone over. The school is closed. Have a nice day. Bye bye. And use the
Chaim,
use the manpower to go out there and do education and to deal with people one-on-one.
I did make that point to the sheriff. I said, I'm talking now not as an administrator. I'm talking as a private citizen that spends $10,000 a year in property taxes, and this is not being responsible with my tax money. She responded, I'm doing my job, but I also pay taxes. I said, well, then you should be just as upset as me.
And what about what about the mental health of the children? What about the children seeing all of these policemen coming in?
Well, they weren't here.
No, they weren't there. The school was closed.
But they're hearing, but they know about it. Everybody knows about it. All the children know that policemen are coming into the schools.
Well, it's more than just coming into the schools.
How scary is that?
It's more than just coming into the schools. Today we had 2 boys that are friends with my sons that were stopped by 2 policemen, asked, where are you coming from? They responded from my friend's house. What were you doing there?
So let's focus on what's happening to our poor children, how terrified they are.
And
this is all about what we're doing to our... Policemen are supposed to be protecting our children, and here the children are being afraid. They're being attacked. Policemen are coming into our buildings. Why, Mommy?
Let me just say one thing. hold on, please, if you don't mind. The cops are only doing what they're ordered to do.
Exactly.
By City Hall. Okay? We work for government. Government tells us what to do. It's not the cops' fault. It's not the sheriff's fault. There's no coordination.
Understood.
There's no reason that 3 different agencies should have went to one location. There's no coordination by City Hall, and there's no direction out of City Hall, and that's the issue. The police are out there doing what they're told to do.
That's scary.
And they do what they're told to do, and then they get chastised for it.
And Paul is absolutely right. If there was direction, you wouldn't have three different agencies coming the same day. Anyway, we need to go on a commercial break. I want to thank Paul DiGiacomo, president of the Detectives Endowment Association. Thank you so much, and always very supportive. And thank you so much, Paul. Thank you. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come, we'll be right back with some very special guests.
TCN, Talkline Communications Network Radio, America's #1 Jewish program.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Chaim on the Radio, 620 AM dial. I'm here live on the air with my co-host, Dr. Faye Zakheim, and we're filling in for Zeb Brenner. We are joined now by Juby Shapiro, a frequent guest on our show to discuss special education matters, and Juby is the founder and leader of Tafkid, where she works to advocate for families with children coping with special education needs. We are also pleased to welcome Hindy Hecht, the Director of Operations and Community Service at OHEL Children's Home and Family Services. And Hindy is leading OHEL's effort to assist parents who have children with special needs, particularly now as they contend with the challenges brought on by COVID. That's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And finally, it is our pleasure to welcome 2 mothers of special education children. Not only do they share the same first name, and coincidentally, they are both named Jennifer, but they're also experiencing a similar life challenge as they attempt to navigate life while guiding the special needs children through the turmoil of COVID. And Jennifer Eisenstein is the mother of a 16-year-old child with autism. Jennifer Gheriani is the mom of an 8-year-old boy who also has autism. Both of their children are facing the many challenges of remote learning that many people across the world are dealing with, but the issues are heightened for a child with autism. And not too long ago, I penned a letter with 2 of my colleagues, Assembly Member Simcha Eichenstein and Councilmember Kalman Yeager, to Department of Education to deal with the issues and obstacles that parents have, those who have special needs children. And, the city needs to do a lot better. And let me just tell the listeners something, that when I put something out on social media, when I put out the letter, this letter that we penned to DOE, and we put other things on social media regarding special needs, there was not too much traction on social media, like supporting us. And let me tell everyone again, don't rely on your elected officials to do everything, because in this communist city, it's very difficult, because we don't even get callbacks from the governor, the mayor, and DOE, and the people that work for them are very limited. So it needs to come from the top. So without having people back us up and not just blast us on Instagram, because it's very easy to hide behind social media. Oh, don't vote for him, don't vote for Chaim Deitch. By the way, I'm not running again, but don't vote for Chaim Deitch, don't vote for Simcha Eichenstein, don't vote for this one, for that one. Yes, don't hide behind social media. Come out when we have a rally. I had 3 rallies over the last 4 or 5 months. We had maybe 100 people. We need thousands of people. But then on Instagram, oh, you're no good. You don't do anything. But anyway, I'm gonna leave my frustration for another time again.
You're in a mood tonight.
So we have all 3 guests here tonight. So we're gonna have a little conversation, and maybe the mayor's office and the governor's office who's listening tonight, maybe they will hear from parents and advocates about what they have to deal with every single day during this time of COVID, and how difficult it is. And it's also difficult for all parents who the schools are closed, but in particular, it's extremely more difficult when you have children with special needs who are home, who cannot sit in one place and for more than a minute. So we'll start with Juby and Jennifer's. You could chime right in, and let's talk about what you go through and how things are each and every day right now here in the city of New York.
So, Councilman, thank you so much for having me back on. Really appreciate it. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
We need to hear you a little louder.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
We hear you.
Thank you so much for having me back on. It's a pleasure to join you again. Unfortunately, I am heartbroken as an advocate and also as a parent of two of my children are multiply handicapped, my two oldest children. But I'll tell you that there's a tremendous difference. My two eldest children, who now are 30 and 28, thank God, they got services through OPWDD. In fact, while their day hab was closed during the spring months and the summer, the day hab sent workers directly into my home to work with my children, and that was a lifesaver because my husband and myself and my two younger children actually got COVID in March, and we would not have been able to pull through this and keep my other children safe without the help of all these dedicated workers. So OPWDD, Medicaid, they all sent workers into the home. However, the DOE did not. And what happened is that I'm getting calls on a daily basis from heartbroken parents telling me how their children have regressed terribly, that their kids can't distance learn effectively. These are children with conditions such as autism, severe intellectual delays, multiple handicaps. I have one parent call me yesterday. Her child has cortical visual impairments plus severe delays. She can't sit in front of a computer and learn. So the DOE, when they closed down in the red zones, quote unquote, they actually eliminated not only the schools but refused to let providers come to the house. And these teachers and providers are extremely dedicated people who actually, if it was safe conditions, would actually take precautions and be able to service the kids one-on-one even if the schools were not open. And besides that point, I just want to make one more point, which is it's really ridiculous.
Before you make the last point, I just want to ask, we have two guests who are calling in, Jennifer and Hindy. Please, if you have your radio on, just turn off your radio and listen through the phone because we hear some feedback.
Okay, sorry. No, my last point I wanted to make for now is that, it's these special ed schools, for example, schools that are geared towards servicing the needs of children with autism, tend to be much smaller schools with much smaller classes, with smaller cohorts, with maybe 6 children to a class. Each child has a one-on-one. Each child learns in a different learning center, in a cubicle in the classroom, whereas they're not sitting all on the floor in circle time. It could be very easily done that these groups could be separated, and I do know of special ed schools that have opened in September and have been successful at keeping their kids COVID-free just by virtue of the safety measures and the hygiene measures that they put in place. And when the mayor and the governor take one broad brush and just close all the schools in the so-called red zones, they're not even realizing the repercussions on the individual children. And I'm sure the parents who are here tonight would like to tell us how this has affected their children.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gheriani. My son is an 8-year-old boy. He is a student in Reach for the Stars Learning Academy. We are unfortunately located in a red zone. We're part of District 22. We were shut down just as, when all the other schools were shut down. I am not sure the governor's office and mayor's office, looked into each school individually to see the protocols that we followed. Our school did a tremendous amount of work, construction over the summer. They were prepared to open. My son was eager to go to school. We suffered tremendously during the 6 months of COVID. My son has tremendous behavior problems. He needs to be in an ABA school, with constant attention, constant hands, constant eyes, supervised at all times. He is, lacking the learning. He cannot do distance learning. Zoom is not effective for these children. And like, Juby told us, we can't, as mothers, sit on top of our children doing Zoom lessons. We are running homes, taking care of other children. We cannot do the job that, the DOE teachers are doing. And we had eager teachers willing to come, willing to work, and the DOE would not provide it because they weren't allowed. I don't know when we're going to reopen. We need some headway to know when our children are going to go back to school. When do they plan on reopening? When do they plan on getting our kids back on a structured program? These kids rely on structure. They rely on, constant learning. They feed off of it, and they grow. So for 6 months, I had my son regress. His behaviors all returned. Everything he's done that we worked so hard on, spending day in, day out, it was a complete regression and a complete disappointment. We are all heartbroken. We don't know where to turn. And, thankfully, Chaim Deutsch is entertaining the idea of speaking up for us. We need a voice. We need mothers to get together to speak and to let the government know that we're suffering, because we can't go on.
And Jennifer, people like you, people need to speak out. You called me, I think, you and Ariella called me yesterday, and I said, I want you to come on the show, right?
I came out at night. I don't even leave my house, ever.
And the thing is but I'm saying very few people, and I want to tell our listeners who have special needs children, that you need to reach out to your elected officials, because when you feel you're giving up and you're under a lot of pressure, if you don't reach out, we don't know, because when I get emails, if I get 100 emails on one specific issue, you pay attention to it. Right? And that's the way it works, even though I pay attention to all my emails.
This was very special to us. You have to understand, we are racking our brains daily just to get by every single day. What a typical developing child can do, our children cannot do.
Yes, and kudos to you, because you picked up the phone. We
don't know where else to turn, and something, if someone's going to give us a shed of light, we're going to go with it, because it's going to help somehow. Someone has to hear our voice, and we need to know that our kids are going to be back in a program, back to learning, and at least us mothers will have some sense of sanity.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I have to say, Juby has been an advocate. She's been on the show just a few months ago speaking about this, and I have to give a kudos also to Jennifer Eisenstein. So she's on the air. So Jennifer.
Hi. Yes. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for giving us a voice. This is something that we've all been trying so hard to be heard, and again, I can echo what everybody has said here so far with the same exact sentiments. Special ed does not work at home. In addition to that, special ed is so much more than just basic education. It's therapeutic, like medically therapeutic. We have OT, PT, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, emotional, social. This cannot be done remotely, and so there really is justification for classifying special education programs as essential need programming, which would then exempt it from these, massive closures that are happening either right now or that might happen, down the line. We don't know, when this will end, but we also don't know when the next one will start and which areas are going to be affected. Like, we have this sense of this is only the beginning this year. So I think that there's a real need for the government to realize and for the state to realize that special education cannot be looked at in the same lens as other things, and it has to be seen on its own. For example, in Israel, where the lockdown right now is so severe, they have special education schools open. You get fined 500 shekel for leaving your house, 10 feet out of your house, but yet the special ed schools are open. You see in a country, that they realize that the dire need. When it comes down to it, all of these restrictions are about health. And at the end of the day, we are, they're taking health and defining it as COVID. And if you don't have COVID and we're not spreading COVID, then that's all that matters. But ultimately, the health of these children now and in the future is being damaged, irreparably by these closures.
I have to just tell you, Jennifer, I hear the pain in your voice, and I'm so sorry for what you're going through. What's it like to have a special needs child at home? Why is it so different for a mother of special needs than it is for a mother with a normal child?
I think any special need mom could answer that, and very clearly. In that, first of all, they're all different. Every house, it's one. I could answer one way, and the other Jennifer will answer a different way, and it depends on the age and the functioning level. The bottom line is they require full attention all day, for the most part. And if you have other children and a job, like I do and like most of us do, and a household to run, and I have children, all learning at home right now, and I'm trying to juggle that, and then I teach on Zoom, and then, there's just a tremendous amount going on at the same time. It's impossible. It's not possible to give them to satisfy their needs. And we're not talking about wants, and we're not talking about luxuries. We're talking about basic needs that need to be attended to. And, even saying teachers could go out to the homes, that may not work for many schools either. But I think that the special ed schools, like Jennifer said before, they're geared to this, meaning they are small classes. My daughter's school has no classes over 10 students. So they can effectively stay open during this time in a healthy way and give our children what they need.
And I just want to, we're fortunate during this time, to have Hindy Hecht, who's the director of operations at OHEL. So Hindy, you've probably seen a lot of the frustration that you're hearing tonight on the radio. And so if you could just talk briefly about the services that OHEL has and during this time, and we're going to continue putting a lot of pressure on the government to reopen the special ed schools, and those should be like an essential, really. And the truth is, all school children should be essential. I have a lot to say about that. Why I think that all the schools should be open. I think it's a lot safer being in school than the kids being home running around all over the place, and that's where they catch COVID. But it doesn't happen in school. There's ways to do it safely, but government failed us. So, Hindy, just talk briefly about the programs OHEL has.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I think that the real issue for us at OHEL has been to be nimble and flexible over these past 6-7 months. As we listen to parents, we keep trying to pivot our services to fill in the gaps, which is so incredibly challenging when children are home all day, every day. Our goal, what parents were asking us for, believe it or not, was take our children away for a day, for a weekend, for a Shabbos, for a Yom Tov, for a week. Over the course of the summer, when the government finally announced that camps would be closed, we quickly pivoted and offered family respite up at Kaylee, where we offered 4-day trips for families to come up and get away a little bit. We gave the kids respite during the day, and the parents were able to just go for a walk, do something other than be with their children. We're finding so much in terms of siblings being impacted negatively, parents, the dynamic. Right now, we're continuing to provide in-home respite for families where we send staff in one-on-one, community hab. Our day programs open, they close, they open, they close based on OPWDD, CDC, DOH. It's really unpredictable. And what we're trying to do is keep meeting the needs in a different way as things come out each day, each week.
Yeah, and it's so important, and OHEL has been there for everyone, and in the time of need, especially the time of need. So we need to make sure in order to reopen schools, because it is government, that we have more people. I think more people need to get tested, because when you have only people who are going out there testing only because they're sick, then our numbers are very extremely high. So we have here, I just want to welcome Josh Mehlman, who's chairman of the Flatbush Jewish Community Coalition, to join us here in the conversation. And Josh has been working endlessly to help formulate our community's response to the recent uptick in COVID cases. In addition to organizing testing drives, Josh also spearheaded a recent viral video that featured leading Rabbanim Rabbi Eli Brudny, Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, Rabbi Moshe Tovia Leaf, who was on the radio show last week. In the video, the Rabbanim talked about the ongoing danger of COVID and the need for caution within our community. So welcome, Josh. I just want to tell the listeners, we have always, whatever I say, you have 50% agree with me and the other 50% don't agree with me. So let's all try being the same page, everyone, that when you walk out of the house, wear a mask. Okay? If you're going to rally, wear a mask. Okay? You could disagree with me, just wear a mask when you disagree with me. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Chaim.
Josh, I just want to say something. Josh, I just want to say it's such an honor to have you on the show, because you're all over the place. I don't know how you do it. I don't know if you get any sleep. But before you say something, I want to say one more thing. Councilman Deutsch, my hat's off to you for validating these girls with these children, because their lives are so difficult and they don't have anybody really listening to them and nobody that cares enough. And you took time out of your radio show with so much going on, and you gave them so much time and you gave them so much support. And I think that you are just an amazing person. I just have to tell you that. Josh, take it away. I'm sorry.
Okay, I agree with you 100% what you said about Chaim. There's no words. Chaim's always been on top of everything important to the community and to the entire Jewish community as chair of the council's committee on the Jewish coalition. He's been all over the place, as you said, on every issue. Well, let me just get to the mask. Chaim, you brought up, thank you for the introduction. There are many people working on this effort, and it's so important that everyone get tested. Let me explain why. This was caused by the governor and the mayor looking at the numbers and saying the numbers in our communities in the so-called red zone, it started off as zip code, then it became the red zone, the numbers are going up. Now, as under the guidance of the Gedolei Rabbanim that you mentioned and many others, we had meetings of Rabbanim, we had one meeting like 80 Rabbanim in Flatbush, another meeting, a conference call like over 130 shuls, Rabbanim, and they're all on the same page. People have to, this virus is real, the effect is real. Number one is we have to take every precaution possible to stop this spread. It means, like Chaim, like you said, everyone should wear a mask. Everyone should practice social distancing. And secondary is how we get out of this. How do we reopen our shuls, reopen our community schools? And the way to do that is by increasing testing, showing the health authorities in the city and the state that our community really, the numbers are skewed, because until now, we're all busy. The only people getting tested are someone who doesn't feel well. You go to the doctor or urgent care, and they say, oh, I don't feel well. They take a test, and they're positive. And maybe the family members became positive. But most people don't get tested, so we want to show that the reality is the vast majority, we think 98% of our community, if not 99%, is Baruch Hashem negative. The only way to show that is what we set up. We had multiple testing sites throughout this past week. Today alone, I think there are like 6 different sites going on. 4 of them we published, other that came up, pop-up sites. Every single Beis Yaakov and yeshiva in the entire community will be testing every single student over the next few days. And we want everyone to please do what you can, comply. The family should be tested, students should be tested, the teachers should be tested for 2 reasons. One is if someone, chas v'shalom, is not feeling well and is positive, he should not be coming to school. We don't want him affecting other people. Maybe some other kid is going to catch it from him and go home to an elderly grandparent or someone who's immune compromised, and it could cause a serious issue. We don't want to prevent that. The second reason is this is the way to open our shuls and our schools. If everyone in the community gets tested, it's free. Insurance pays for it. No deductible. If you don't have insurance, all you need is your social security number. There's a government program that'll cover the cost. Please go and get tested. Your school sent out an email that you should go on the day the school set you up for. Go in the shuls. We're setting up a whole program with the shuls over the next few days. And I think it's so important. And Chaim, as you has taken a leadership role in this, in getting our community both to be healthy and to open up our shuls and schools.
And the fact, what Josh just mentioned, is that only people that are not feeling well went out to get tested. So that's why, according to the Department of Health, the numbers here are extremely high. You have people throughout the city. You see them out there not wearing masks in many, many places, but they're attacking our community. We need people to go out. And Josh, can you how do people get the testing sites?
Yes, so there's a number of testing sites out there. The number one is if you have a student, if you're part of a school, if you have children in school, or you're in a school, they will be sending out an email with the testing site from that school. It's very important to do that. We're running one on Sunday from 10 to 4 on East 14th Street at the parking lot, East 14th Street between Avenue K and Avenue L, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, it's free. You can come there. There are other ones that we will be sending out. FJCC has been working with a team of dedicated Askanim, volunteers from throughout the community, working together to set up these sites. We'll be sending out our emails. If you're not on our email list, send an email to info@flatbushjewish.com, info@flatbushjewish.com. We'll put you on a list. You'll get the updated list as we're adding sites every day.
Thank you so much, Josh. And finally, I just want to give a shout out again to Jennifer Eisenstein, Jennifer Gheriani, Hindy from OHEL, and also Josh for being here. And last but not least, Juby Shapiro, who is a hero and a lifesaver for many parents, an advocate for parents of special needs children. And we had Juby here before on the show, and Juby's really been, I could tell you, a real lifesaver to many parents who have nowhere else to turn, so they go to Juby Shapiro.
Yeah, I just want to correct one thing. I said it's East 14th Street, KNL. It's not. East 14th Street between Avenue L and Avenue M. In the parking lot, it's actually right before the OHEL building. It's between L and M in the parking lot. This Sunday, you could go there and get tested. We will be setting up other sites, possibly even Motzei Shabbos and throughout the week. And if someone tests negative, that doesn't mean that they can't possibly have the virus. They could be incubating it, and it could still be contagious, so we must go at least once a week for testing.
Thank you very much, Josh, and I want to thank Tova Chasanoff-Rosenfeld, Jabran Akram, who's here in the studio, and manning the phones and taking care of all the logistics. So until next week, Shabbat Shalom, stay safe, and fight.